Okay, this is a video we're going to learn how to make a keychain, which is a super fun and a pretty easy project also. But it makes a really neat little keychain that you can put on your keyring. There are some important things that you have to remember first though. So let's go ahead and get started. And what you're going to do is start off by creating a new design. Now when you create a new design, it's going to have a really silly name for it. Like this one's a spectacular Maimu Go-Go. I don't know what that means, but we're going to change that. So we're going to go to design and go to properties, and you're going to put down, and you're going to change the name of it to keychain, and then put your name there. So I put keychain Jeremy Woodchick. Okay, what I want you to do first of all, okay, now listen, if you make a keychain that's as big as this space, you're going to be making a keychain that's 8 inches by 8 inches. It wouldn't even fit in your pocket, right? So what you got to do first of all, to make sure and remind yourself while you're working how big it can be, for the keychain assignment, I only want you guys to go 50 by 50, no bigger. Because 50 millimeters by 50 millimeters is about 2 inches by 2 inches, and that's about as big as you're going to want your keychain anyways. Anything bigger than that, it might be uncomfortable to put in your pocket. Here's how you do that. Let's get started. You go to Edit Grid, and you keep it on millimeters, but you change 200 into 50 and 50. See, it's going to be custom now, and you go to Update Grid. See that space? This represents the space that a keychain should take up. Now you can make it smaller than that, but I don't want you to make it any bigger than that because it wouldn't make a very good keychain. Okay, now for this one, what I'm going to do on this one, here's my plan for this. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I want to make a keychain that represents, let's see, LC Robotics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off, you can grab any of these shapes. So the first part we want to do is we want to grab a slab like that represents the main area of this keychain. So for mine, I want mine to be mostly a square. So I'm going to drag it up. Now you see you can drag it by grabbing these little buttons, these little dots. If you grab the white dot, it moves 2 dimensions at once, the length and the width. If you grab a black dot, the black dot moves only 1 dimension at a time, so just the length or the width. If you want to make it taller, you have to grab this dot on the top and stretch it up and down. Now let's talk about moving stuff around. You can move stuff around in TinkerCAD really easily. If you want to move this over, you just grab it and drag it. But listen, sometimes the mouse isn't good enough. You want to get it exactly where you want. Use the little arrow buttons on the keyboard. You see what it does? Up and down, left and right, wherever. But notice what it doesn't do. When I drag it around, it doesn't go up in the air and float at all, does it? If you want to make anything go up in the air and kind of float off the ground, you have to either grab this arrow that's on the top, or if you're looking from the bottom, it'll be down here. So I'm going to grab it, and you can drag it, and you could make this float. But I'm going to move it back down so it's right on the ground to 0. Okay, so that's how you can resize objects. And the same thing's true of anything. The cylinder, we can stretch it out by grabbing one of these. We can squish it down. Now listen. A lot of times you're going to want to make something grow or shrink but not change shapes. See the problem with this is if I stretch only one side out, it doesn't stay as a cylinder. It goes and changes into an oval shape rather than a circle. How do I do that? I'm going to undo this. The undo button's right at the top, by the way. So one of the things you have to do is hold down Shift. If you hold down Shift while you grab any of these and move them, then it moves them and makes it bigger, but it makes all the dimensions bigger by the same scale factor. See how it stays as a cylinder now? That's because I'm holding down Shift. Watch what happens if I let go of Shift. Stretches out and gets distorted. We call that, when you change the shape of it, distortion. So it looks similar, but it's not exactly the same shape. All right, so let's take a look. I want my keychain today. I'm going to do something different. I like the hexagon. So I'm going to bring out a hexagon. I'm going to hold down Shift to make it grow the same. Now, if you're thinking that's not going to be very comfortable in my pocket, you're right. Now, what I want you to do is to grab a digital caliper. If you need one, borrow one from me. The digital, what we're going to do here is I'm just going to size this down. You need to get a digital caliper and look at it before you decide on dimensions. So for example, for this one, I'm going to want to actually get a digital caliper and see what that's going to be like. Let me show. Okay, so if you're anything like me, before I started 3D printing, I didn't really use millimeters that much. So what we have here is what's called the digital caliper. What you want to do first of all is loosen the screw at the top, and then what happens, you're going to take this and you're going to close it all the way, and then you're going to go to press the millimeter and inch button until it's on millimeters. So if you look here carefully, this is on millimeters now. And then what you do, and remember how on my assignment, I decided, like, hey, is 6 millimeters a good width for my keychain? And so what you can do with this is actually see what 6 millimeters looks like in real life, rather than just kind of guessing, because like I said, before I started this 3D printing stuff, I didn't really use millimeters that much. So somebody told me 12 millimeters or 6 or 8. I didn't really know what that looked like and what would be like in my pocket for a keychain. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stretch this out and open it, and you can roll this little thing here, and I'm going to roll it until the screen says right about 6. All right, so this is just barely over 6 millimeters. And if you look at this, this would be a pretty reasonable width for my keychain. And so any measurement that you put on here, always check it to see what does that look like. So it's 3 millimeters, you know, whatever. So that's how you use the digital caliper to help you understand what things are going to look like in real life. I have a whole set of those in the closet. Just ask me, and you can certainly borrow one as long as you put it back and you're careful with it. Okay, so let's get back to our drawing here. Now, every keychain, the first thing that every keychain needs is you need a hole for the keyring to go through, right? So again, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this, and I'm going to open this and just take a look at our digital caliper. I'm going to open that until it looks like I have a hole that's plenty big enough. Okay, about right there looks good to me. And you see that hole? According to my digital caliper, it's about 4.85. So I'm going to round that up to about 5 millimeters. So how am I going to do that? You can use any of these shapes. Now watch. How do you add stuff? If you want to add stuff to your design, it's easy. Just drag it out and put it there. Now this hole is the first thing we're going to make. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this out, hold down Shift to keep it in a circle, and I'm going to go down to 5 millimeters because that looked like a good size to me. Now, here's what we're going to do, though. We're going to zoom in with our mouse wheel. You could also use these buttons here to change your view. I like to use my mouse buttons. So I got this hole. I'm going to make it really tall. Because you know what? All it has to be is taller than my shape to cut through it, or as tall as the shape. And then you click it, and you see up here, in TinkerCAD, if you give it a color, whatever color you get, it doesn't matter. It's a positive thing, and it adds to the shape's size. If you make it into a hole instead of giving it a color, then it becomes a negative thing, and it subtracts from the overall size of that shape. So now I'm going to take this and maneuver this thing right here in the middle, about right in the middle of the keychain. Now, hey, another thing that kids do all the time is they'll put the hole right up against here. You know what's going to happen? That's less than 1 tiny little millimeter. Let's look at that on the digital caliper. Let's look and see what that wall would look like. Because what happens is when I put these together and I make a group out of them, it's going to cut it out. Now look at that tiny wall that's only 1 millimeter. Let's look at 1 millimeter on the camera. Tiny. I mean almost nothing. So that's going to be so weak that the plastic's going to break against the keychain. So what we need to do here is I'm going to ungroup it, and we need to take this and move it in a little bit. See, now when I group them back together, I grab them both and I group them together, it cuts the hole out. See, now I got a pretty comfortable little wall there that's not going to wear out right away. Does that make sense? So we got this part done, and that's kind of the basics of it. Now I want to show you how to add the most popular objects. You know, some people put pyramids on theirs to make a cool design. I've seen people do all kinds of stuff. You can drag out any shape you want, and it will add to your shape unless you make it into a hole. Any shape you want to could be cut out. Look, I don't know why you'd want to do this, but look, if I wanted to, I could grab this, group it together, and I could cut that shape out of the side of it. I don't want to, but I could. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to show you how to add text. To add text, because a lot of people like to have something, their name on it, or maybe their favorite football team's name, or their school's name, or whatever. You know what? I want to make mine for LC Robotics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Shape Generators. By the way, that other stuff we were in was geometric. Most of the stuff you want to use is right there. I'm going to go to Shape Generators, and I'm going to go to TinkerCAD. These are what shape generators that are made by the TinkerCAD company. And then I'm going to go right here to text. And guess what? If you drag out text, now you have really big text. I'm going to show you how to shrink that. I think I already have, kind of, haven't I? You click the text. First of all, let's type in what I want. I want LC, and I want that to be one line. And then I'm going to drag out another group of text, and I'm going to write in this one, I'm going to write robotics. LC robotics. Takes a second. Something happened here. Okay, here we go. So you got to give it some time. Remember, this is a web application that runs over the web, so we might have some connection issues with it. If it slows down, don't freak out. Okay, I want to drag my LC. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut LC out of it, and I want the robotics part to stick out. Okay? So my LC is going to go here, but you can see way too big. It'll take up the whole keychain. Again, how do we make it smaller? We hold down Shift so that it doesn't get distorted, and we make it much smaller. I need to make it taller so it can stick out. And I'm going to move that into position right here. And then I'm going to make it into a hole, because remember, I wanted the LC part of the keychain to be cut out. Now, if you want to see what that looks like right now, you could make a group. And you can see the LC's been cut out, hasn't it? So I got that part done. Now I'm going to go over here and I'm going to hold down Shift. We make my robotics part smaller. But the problem is if I drag the robotics into the design, it's not tall enough to even stick out, is it? So there's a couple ways you can deal with that. You can either make this just big and tall so it sticks out, or you could take this and drag it up so that it kind of sticks out a little bit, but it does still overlap. You know what I'm going to do? I like the first option better. I'm just going to make it taller. Now, if it's 6 millimeters, it won't stick up. I want it to stick up at least 2 millimeters. So I'm going to go 1, 2 extra, give it up to 8 millimeters. And then I'm going to use my arrow keys on the keyboard, which is another way of moving things to position that right where I want it. Now I'm going to show you guys something a little bit more advanced. I want to put an actual little robot on my keychain. So in this empty spot here, I want to get a robot or some sort of a robot on there. So I'm going to show you guys what I'm going to do. This is a little bit more advanced. You don't have to do this. There's an import function. There's an import function that will allow us to import stuff that other people have made on the internet already. So watch this. What you're going to do is you're going to go to Umagine. Y-O-U. It's like Imagine, except it's Umagine. M-A-G-I-N-E.com. Now what Umagine is a place where people upload all sorts of designs. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to search for robot. And you can see there's tons of different robots that we can choose from. Now, I'm looking here. You know what I want? I'm going to use this robot, but I'm not going to use all of them, actually. I'm only going to use that head right there. Now, this is going to be a little bit more advanced, but you guys, this is all the stuff that I've kind of already taught you. So we go to download. Oh, it made a zip file. I don't want to get that, actually. So you go to documents instead. Go to documents. And then I'm going to grab this one. Here's the file. I'm going to download just the file. Now, when I think about it, you really actually don't have to download it. The better way to do it is to right-click, and you go to Copy Link Address. Okay? And then you go in here, and you go to Import, and you want to go to URL. And watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to right-click, and I'm going to paste. And that, you know what this is? This is the link that you can download it from. And I'm going to go to Import. And if everything works right, this cool robot should show up on my screen. Now, don't worry if it's way too big or anything. Hey, welcome. I'm glad you're here. This is all recording on a video, so when I'm done, you can watch the beginning, okay, to get caught up. Okay, so check it out. Guys, I only want the robot's head looking up at me from the keychain, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some, remember how we talked about how anything can be a hole and subtract from it? What I'm going to do is use a box to cut off the robot's body. Then I'm going to rotate his head and size it down. So watch what I'm going to do. We're going to close this and go to geometric and grab a box. Is this box big enough to cut off the robot's body? No way. So I'm going to make it much, much bigger. And then we're going to adjust this top one. I got to get a good view here. And I'm going to adjust this top one. And I'm going to keep going. You tell me when to stop. Yeah, right there. Now, if you want to get more accurate, you could change this to 0.5 and go by 0.5 millimeters. I like that a little better. Okay, now watch this. What we do is we grab this. I'm going to make sure it goes a little bit on the bottom just for safety. Just to be careful, just to be safe. So now what I have is I'm going to change this into a hole. I'm going to grab these two together and make them into a group. See the group button? And it's going to take a while. This is what takes a while in this program because it's kind of complex. It takes a lot more math to do this with an STL file. Hey, and look. Now I have just the robot's head. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, here's the thing. I want it to look up at me. I don't want to just see this, right? I want the robot's head to be looking at me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look. This is one thing I haven't showed you, that is how to rotate things. So here's the rotators. Do you want to rotate it like this? No. This wouldn't be it. This is the one I want. And I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees and let go. Now if I move it, it's still much too big. What do we hold down to make sure it doesn't get out of whack and weird looking? Shift. Yeah, good. You guys are listening. That's good. Okay, I'm going to make it about that size. And now I'm going to move it to about where I want it. Hey, it's not going to be exactly right at first, but we'll get it right in a second. Okay, so there's my robot head. But see what the problem is? It looked good from up here, didn't it? But if you rotate your view, now we have to grab the arrow on top and slide this down until it looks about where we want it. I think that looks really cool, but we're going to have one problem. What's the problem? Check them out. See what the problem is? I don't want it sticking out the back here. We can chop it off with a hole. We can use a box. So let's do that part, and we're going to finish it by make a big giant box that's big enough to cover it. Doesn't matter how big, just as long as it's big enough. And then what we have to do, if I use it right now, it's going to cut off everything, right? So I have to move it down. And there it is. It's even with the bottom. And we grab everything together and group it. You know what, though? I want to put one more thing. An accent is an extra line that kind of makes it stand out and makes the design look cooler, but it's really not needed. So what I want to do is I'm going to put a hexagon accent. So I'm going to ungroup these and do one more thing. I'm going to ungroup it again. Remember this cylinder that was going to cut the hole? I'm going to use that as an hexagon type accent, okay? So I'm going to go down here. Remember how my hole was like 5? I'm going to make this significantly bigger, like maybe 8 or 9. And again, if you want to know what that looks like, pull out your caliper and see what 9 millimeters looks like. So I'm going to do here, and guess what? If it was at 6, it wouldn't stick up at all. I want it to stick up, let's say 1 millimeter. That's it. So I'm going to make it up to 7 for the height. And now what we're going to do is we're going to slide this over until it's lined up perfectly with that hole cylinder. Let's get a good top view. And there it is. That looks pretty good. When I look at this, though, I kind of feel like moving them both down. If you hold down Shift, you can grab them both, and I'm going to move them both down a little bit. So there we go. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab it all, group it together, and always double check your work to make sure it's exactly what you want before we print it. Because when you print it once, it's a long process. We want to get it right first. Okay, this keychain looks like it's pretty good to me, except I feel like if this is in my pocket, that's going to kind of stick out too much. So I'm going to double click it, and I'm going to move my robot head down just a little bit more. I want to still be able to see both of his eyes. I think that looks pretty awesome. That's the keychain I want. Okay, now you guys, here's the last step. If you're in my class for 3D printing, you're going to do this part. The people in here are going to do something a little different. I'll tell you guys later. But if you're in one of my classes right now watching this video, here's how you do this. You're going to go make sure that you've changed the name on it to keychain in your name. And you're going to go to Design, Download for 3D Printing. We always use the STL file. And look at this. STL file gets downloaded. And what we do now is we go and open up the file browser, and you're going to go into Downloads, and there's my keychain. I'm going to right-click and copy the keychain. And then if you're in my class, you're going to go to Computer, and then one of these hard drives has your name on it. You get into that one, and you right-click and paste it. Now Mr. Woodchick will be able to get your file and put it on the 3D printer. If you're in my after-school club, you may or may not have your own file that I can grab from. If you don't have one, then we'll find a different way. We'll find a USB drive, and we'll transfer it over manually, and then I can print it from you like that. Hey, I want to thank everybody for watching, and I hope you guys have a blast with TinkerCAD. It's a totally free program, and the cool thing about TinkerCAD is you never have to install it anywhere in the world. If you're on a web browser like Chrome or Firefox, it doesn't work so well with Microsoft Internet Explorer, but if you're on Chrome or Firefox, you can literally log into this anywhere in the world, and all your designs are saved on the cloud, which means you don't have to put them and save them and take them with you. They're there. So if I log in at my house, guess what? This keychain will be available to me right here. If I log in at school, or if I'm at visiting my father at his house, anywhere I'm at, I can just open this up anywhere anywhere that's possible. Okay, good luck with your guys' keychain designs.